Good evening to all of you. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very important conference. Indeed, I'm one of those who believe that we do have a problem, but I might have a slightly different opinion about what exactly the problem is, which is fine. I think we need different views, and I'd like to say also from the very beginning that I think there are many problems, and I do not believe that there's one single solution. I mean, there are really many different types of solutions, and while we could think about education 40 years ago as one single channel where kids get into the kindergarten, primary school, high school, university, if at all, and everyone would go to the same channel and to the same kind of education, and those who do not go through it would fall apart. The world of today is very different, and there's a plurality of choices, and one that we need really to understand what it does and how we, I would say, use it so that we can actually get where we want to be. Indeed, I'm the president of the Weizman Institute for more than 10 years now. But I'm also, as you can see, I have some experience in science education, given the fact that I do not operate. I'm just the chair of several of these organizations that deal with science education. As was said before, Israel has been a very successful country in terms of the high-tech sector. And one of the questions we need to ask ourselves, how did we achieve this? And some of the reasons were given just by the previous speaker, in terms of investment and what the government did in this complete scheme, or this complex scheme that allows people to try to understand maybe why we're successful, even though in a minute you'll see that there's some doubt about exactly how this was really successful. But I indeed like to focus on the issues of education and not on the issue of, maybe I should hold it and then it will be closer to my mouth, but not on the issue on investment and how and what the government and where we need to start up and so forth. So we'll focus on the education part. And the question, of course, we need to understand is, can we continue this success? Now, many people every year look at the ranking of Israel in terms of science education, mathematics, or scientific literacy, whatever you want. And I think I don't need to, and I know you can't read the countries, I don't need to convince anyone that the ranking of Israel in mathematics is not very good. You don't know which the countries are, but you see the red one is Israel, and clearly you would like to be on the right side and not on the left side. Just for you to know, the country just on the left of Israel is Turkey or Chile. We would like to be like the other countries. Yet it is quite impressive, after all, that even though we're far away from the top, we do way better than many of the countries that are located in this graph. So the fact that we claim that we're not good at mathematics might not be actually the reason why we might fail, because many, many years ago, if you don't know that, we were also not very good. In fact, if I look at how proficient in mathematics our kid was, let's say, 10 years ago, when we still have data, this is the result. This is how we were proficient 10 years ago, and this is how we are today, our kids age 15. In fact, we are better today. So how come we have been so successful in high tech, even though 10 years ago, and if you look at the data 20 years ago, we were also not very good. On the scale of PISA, we were never very good. Yet our high-tech sector has been extremely successful. So is it the truth that our math education is not good? Is it true that science education in Israel is not good? I can tell you as a physicist, it is not good, no doubt. And while the kids of today are more proficient in math than 10 years ago, according to this type of exam, the kids of today are still weak in math. And we still them to be better. But the real problem, in fact, and as it was pointed just before, is that we must improve the score, but we don't want to be number one. I don't know for those who've been to Japan or Korea or Finland or Singapore, where these kids are actually number one in terms of or their ability to answer questions in mathematics. I don't know if you've seen the high-tech sector. It is dead. There's nothing. So how come you can be number one in math, in physics, in chemistry, and even in biology, but have no high-tech sector? And the answer is that only teaching mathematics, physics, chemistry, whatever you want is not enough. Even not teaching it extremely well actually doesn't really help you. Of course, what we need is more kids with 5 units in math, physics, and chemistry, specifically if you want more practical tech. And I'll say a few words about that. So the big belief that with the type of education we provide our kids today in mathematics or physics, we might not sustain the high-tech sector is not something I support in terms of opinion. I do believe we need to get much better, but getting much better is not really the solution that will provide us with a very highly proficient technical or scientific workforce in Israel. We first need many more people, and perhaps we need it to do it in a different way. So I'm just trying to show that the type of education might not be the issue. So why is Israel so successful in the high-tech sector? Well, this is my view of this. This is the way we work. Mostly it is not about what we know, but it is what we do with what we know. Well, in Europe or in the rest of the world, we try to work one problem at a time. As you know, in Israel, we try to solve all the problems at the same time. Maybe the best way to express this, and I've had some experience in Germany because I worked in Germany for several years. When I was a director of a scientific institution in Germany, and I moved back to Israel, and I became the president of the Weizman Institute about 10 years ago, the president of the state of Germany, the Federal Republic of Germany, asked me, where is science better? Is it in Germany or in Israel? Now, you know, you're facing the president of Germany, you better have a good answer if you don't want to cancel the diplomatic relationship between Israel and Germany. And I really didn't know what to answer, which would be, you know, meaningful. And then I look at him and I say, and you know, there were many ambassadors around the table. I say, have you been in Israel? And he said, yes, I've been to Israel. He said, have you been driving in Israel? He said, oh, yes, it's a disaster. Well, you see, we, the scientists in Israel, are doing science the same way we're driving in the street. And you, the German, you're doing science the same way you're driving in the street as well. He said, I got it. And in fact, the true reason for the success of the high-tech in Israel is not only the science education. Let's make it very clear. It is also the fact that we have an innovative culture which is based on risk-taking, failure management, little respect for authorities, which is very important. Multicultural immigration is a major factor to the success. And of course, what is called chutzpah, which is a word I've never succeeded to translate in any other language but Yiddish. Korean, if a book, I don't know if you've seen Korea, there's a book written in Korea, it's chutzpah. Try to translate this in Korean. I don't know how to do that. So this is one of the major reasons to do it. And that culture, as you know, and you can hear, is not going away. So this part, I guess, will stay with us for many, many years. Now, what we do need, indeed, is to have many more kids with a high degree of math, science, literacy. Our kids know that there are many opportunities in science and engineering jobs. They know that. Yet, they shy away from choosing math, physics, and chemistry. And the question is really why? How come in a country where there's so much success and everyone knows about ways and whatever you want and huge funds and money and people getting very rich from high tech, our kids do not flock actually into this business and do not go to study math, physics, chemistry, whatever you want? What's the reason behind that? Many would say it's difficult. Well, I don't know. I don't think it's difficult, at least that's my opinion. But there's one way to look at this, which has been I would say, looked for many, many years by a very important body which is located actually in Norway. It's called ROSE, R-O-S-E, Research on Science Education, which around the world made a survey for kids 15 and asked exactly the same question for all these kids. And you can see many countries, from Uganda all the way to Norway, and Israel has the bottom. And they asked kids 15 years old, is science and technology important for society? On the right side, it means yes. On the left side, the red line, it means no. And you can see in all countries in the world, all kids age 15, blue and white means boys and girls. It doesn't really matter here. All kids in the world believe that science and technology is important. But then you ask exactly the same kids, who wants to be a scientist? And that's the answer now. And what you see is really amazing. In the poorest countries in the world, Uganda, Ghana, Swaziland, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Philippines, Bangladesh, and so forth. Yes, I want to be a scientist. In the richest countries in the world, Japan, Finland, Iceland, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Israel, no, I don't want to be a scientist. Scientists is engineers. I don't want to study physics. How could that be? In countries which have profited from the scientific advances, most kids do not want to be a scientist. They see what it does. They have the best doctors, the best cars, the best phones, the best iPhones, the best computers. They don't want to be scientists. In countries where they have no idea what science can do for you, they want to be scientists, engineers. So the report, which I recommend you to read, analyze really the differences between all this and come to a very important conclusion. And the conclusion is, and you can try that at home, I recommend you, for those who have kids or grandkids, age 15, go back at home and ask your kid, what do you want to do when you grow up? Ask them. And listen to the answer very carefully. And if you clearly listen to the answer, you'll see that they never answer this question. They answer a totally different question. They answer the question, who would you want to be when you be a grown-up? And what we are forgetting is that for the kids of today, an educational choice is an identity choice. It is not about what I will do with it. It is who I will be when I will do this choice. Then I recommend you to go to Google and to write in the image tab, lawyer, and then scientist. And you click and you look at the images of the people who are lawyers, and you look at the images of people who are scientists. Believe me, in Google image, scientists do not look like me. They don't. They look very different, very strange. We are living in a world where kids do not want to choose a profession because what the profession is, but how it is regarded, how it is looked at. How do I look in front of my friends, in front of the society, if I'm a scientist or an engineer, or if I'm a lawyer or a business person, or a singer, or of course a footballer. And that's how the choice is made. It's not because we're going to teach more mathematics and to make it even at a higher level, or to try to convince the kid to get there that we will get there. We have to change the image of what it is. And the question, of course, is how to improve the identity choice, how to make it in a way that the kids would love to be scientists. So, and I'll answer that question a little later. So, but let's not assume that they want to be scientists. Let's assume we've solved this, and I'll provide at least a glimpse of a solution. Let's assume they want to be scientists or engineers or technicians or practic tech, as you call them, because practic tech also is the same issue. You have to learn, first of all, mathematics and physics. You cannot be a practic tech in the modern world if you don't learn this mathematics and physics basis. What do we need to teach them, assuming they do go in the system? And as it was alluded by the previous speaker, and that's another quote by Carl Fish, we are currently preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist, using technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet. So what do we teach them? And what do we need to teach them is, before we decide what we need to teach, is actually to remember what happened here 20 years ago. When there was the startup nation, when the startup nation started about 20 to 25 years ago, we didn't teach our kids nanoscience. We didn't even teach them computer science. We didn't teach them biotech. We didn't teach anything but mathematics, physics, and chemistry. So I'm wondering, how come if it works 20, 25 years ago, why it couldn't work today? And the conclusion I have, and I think I have enough experience, is that the trend that we see today of trying to teach our kids way too early, I mean age 15, 16, 17, already a profession, and to teach them nanotech in high school, and to take biotech in high school, and to take all these fields is actually useless. Because whatever we teach them in high school on the topic is gone 10 years later. What we need to go is to go back to the basics, is to teach them physics, chemistry, and mathematics, and not trying to think of what they will need when they will be 25 years old, because we don't know, and they don't know either. But if they have the basics, I promise you, if they know math and physics and chemistry and computer science, they'll know what to do with it, because everything else is a derivative of these basics. Everything in technology is based on mathematics, physics, chemistry, and computer science, if you want. Even computer science is based on mathematics, so you don't even need that in high school, even though I do support that it's being educated in high school as well. So focus on the basic. We did that 25 years ago. It worked for us. What's wrong? What was wrong at that time? Nothing. What could be wrong in the future? Nothing. So focus on the basic. What do I mean by this? I'm not going to go into the details because this is really a long program. But I can tell you that you can go from kindergarten to principal school to high school and even to higher education when you can actually keep the kids focused on the basics and not teach them a specific profession too early. Because if you teach them the specific professions too early, you'll have experts in air conditioning for a specific type of air conditioning that in 5 years from now, this air conditioning is useless. I can tell you we see this in biology. You say there are too many students in biology. If you look at the biology of today, the life science, and the biology of 5 years ago, the books of biology in high schools are wrong today. Because science has moved so fast that all that stuff is not really valuable. Physics, however, is still the same 15th, 16th, 17th century, and that's what we need. Unfortunately, it is not very, or maybe intimidating. It might not be very funny, but that's what we need to teach. And so one can go into the program of kindergarten, principal school, high school, and higher education. What I wrote here is that we should stick to the basic as much as possible because this is what will provide our kids the tools to actually prepare themselves for something we have no idea what it will be. Indeed, the cell phone we have in our pocket here 20 years ago did not exist, and those who invented it had no idea about programming cell phones. They learned it by themselves because they knew the basics. So what do we do in science education? I have to say a few words about this to show you how we think about these basics. We have several, I would say, groups of people or institutions within the Weizman Institute that deal with science education. One is an academic one, the Department of Science Teaching, which, by the way, for more than 50 years wrote the books of physics and mathematics and chemistry for the State of Israel. And a little newer one, which is the Davidson Institute of Science Education, which is, in my opinion, the second largest body of science education in Israel after the Minister of Education. We can't beat too much the State of Israel at that point, which deals with basically trying to excite the mind of the kids of what it is to be a scientist and how science can actually be beautiful, and doing what we call curiosity-driven education. Trying to attract the kids by all means into the world of science so that we keep them connected to this part and not let their mind driven by other issues, which, by the way, are also important. I'm not saying we should not teach English, certainly not, and not even history and Tanakh and philosophy. All these things are important, but it is very important to keep their mind excited by the world of science. And that institute is today talking one way or another with about 350,000 kids every single year. So this is quite a major thing. We do other things, like the famous Chemda here in Tel Aviv, which is today called also the Weizman Science Education Center in various cities. We have one in Tel Aviv, one in Rehovot Nes Tziyona, and pretty soon we'll have one in Rishon LeZion, and hopefully we'll also have in additional cities. What are these centers? Well, these centers are based on the following idea. It is the idea that if you really want to teach science at the high level and attract kids into the science field, the first things we need to do is that we need to understand that the quality of the students will never exceed the quality of the teachers, who must be scientists. Unlike what we teach, a teacher in history who could be a teacher in science has to be a scientist. It's almost inevitable. And the reason is because, remember that the education choice is an identity choice. It's only when the kids will meet a scientist, and scientists are nice, that they will know what it is to be a scientist. The second thing is, physics and chemistry have many abstract concepts, and high-level teaching requires advanced laboratory setup. The fact that in today's Israel, we believe we can teach our kids chemistry and physics without having laboratories in the school is just incredibly wrong. There's no way we can teach abstract concepts without having labs and kids working with their hands. Someone here was talking about practic tech. That's where it starts. We have to link the theoretical world to the practical world. It has to be done through laboratories, and not by having only teachers teaching equations of physics or mathematics on the blackboard. Kids will shy away from this because they don't know what it really represents. We have to have laboratories and highly, I would say, highly sophisticated equipment, because kids know what equipment is all about. And if you have a computer which is 15 years old, you know your kids are not going to play with it. Last but not least, science teachers must form a community with day-to-day contact and exchanges of ideas and updates to maintain high level of curiosity and passion. And this is what we have done by creating the centers of education that are located in the center of certain cities, where we have integrated laboratories in the classroom, meaning we do not teach anymore physics and chemistry without having classrooms that have laboratory within the classroom. The way it works, and you can think of any city, you take a city, you have different schools, and instead of each of these schools teaching physics and chemistry with teachers who are teachers but not scientists and having no laboratories, you create one center which has laboratories and teachers with PhD and MSc. And by the way, no problem to find physics teachers and chemistry teachers with PhDs and master. They run to us, and there's absolutely no problem. You link these schools to the center, and instead of teaching physics and or chemistry in the schools, you teach them in one center where you do have scientists who are working there. And you teach the regular curriculum. I could show you the result of this, but I won't have the time. But believe me, we've been doing that in Tel Aviv for 25 years. And we have about 2,000 students today. We are doing that in Rehovot and Nes Tziyona for 3 years. We have 1,000 students, and we're planning to start pretty soon in 2018 in Rishon LeZion. And we do hope to have additional centers. What are the advantages of centers like this? The advantage is we can actually hire the right teachers, which, as I said, is important. Because they're scientists, they won't go into the typical school. We can pay them what they need to be paid. Teachers need to be paid more than doctors, I'm sorry. A good teacher replaces a good doctor, there's no doubt. And we can actually attract the kids to the place which is really high-tech. And just to give an example, in Rehovot, we started for the last 3 years to do that. We've increased by more than 30% the number of kids who are taking physics and chemistry at physics at 5 units. So there's really a way to do that, and you have to do it in a professional way. If you do it in a professional way, your kids will come to you, and even if you teach at the highest possible level, they will join you and they will accept it. It's not about the difficulties, it is about the value of what you're providing the kids so that they can be part of your system. So that's the end of my story. I believe that we need to teach the basics. We have to go back to these basics, but we have to do it in a very, very professional way, and we cannot afford our kids to not understand what science is all about by not showing them who the scientists are. Thank you very much.